Hello students, in this session we will be learning about regulation of respiration. This is Dr. Hemlata A from Maharani Science College for Women. You have studied the respiratory system in your previous classes. We will just have a small recap of the respiratory system. If you look at the respiratory system, there are two parts, the upper respiratory tract and the lower respiratory tract. The upper respiratory tract starts at the nostrils, then you have the nasal cavity, then you have the oral cavity, pharynx which leads into larynx. This forms the upper respiratory tract. Larynx will lead into trachea. Trachea is the beginning of the lower respiratory tract. Trachea gives rise to the two primary bronchi, which branches into secondary bronchi, which further branches into tertiary bronchi, and these bronchi end in bronchioles. The bronchioles will end in the alveoli, which is the site where the main function of the respiratory system, that is exchange of the respiratory gases oxygen and carbon dioxide, will take place. So the air enters the upper respiratory tract and then into the lower respiratory tract. From the lower respiratory tract it reaches the final destination, that is the alveoli. If you look at the picture on the right side, you can see the alveoli, and this alveoli is richly supplied with capillaries. So there are the blood vessels, the pulmonary artery which is coming from the lungs. It is bringing the blood, mainly deoxygenated blood, from the heart, where the carbon dioxide will have to enter into the lungs and it has to be expelled out from the respiratory system. So the capillaries of the artery, pulmonary artery, is bringing in the deoxygenated blood. Then you have the pulmonary capillaries, which will carry the blood to the heart for purification, to the heart for distribution. So these pulmonary veins which are leaving the lungs will carry the oxygen, and the oxygen rich blood, oxygenated blood, is taken to the heart for distribution. Every cell of the body has to be supplied with oxygen, and the oxygen supply should not cease even for a few seconds. Especially the brain requires continuous supply of oxygen. So this exchange of the respiratory gases, carbon dioxide and oxygen, will happen at the alveoli. So you can see in this picture the alveoli is richly supplied with the capillaries, and the capillaries which are broken from the pulmonary artery are bringing in the deoxygenated blood, and the veins which will leave the lungs will carry the oxygenated blood. If you look at the process of respiration, first two events will happen. One is inspiration, the other one is expiration. During inspiration, you are taking in oxygen from the atmospheric air. During expiration, the carbon dioxide, which is a byproduct of the metabolic activity happening in the body and which is collected from different parts of the body, brought to the lungs. There it is released in the alveoli and expelled out of the respiratory system during expiration. During inspiration, oxygen is taken in, which diffuses into the capillaries. From there it leaves the lungs and goes to the heart. During expiration, the carbon dioxide brought from the heart, which is collected from different parts of the body, is released in the alveoli and expelled out. This inspiration and expiration happens by changes in the thoracic cavity. The respiratory organs, lungs, are placed in the thoracic cavity. So when you inspire, that is, you breathe in oxygen, the thoracic cavity will raise. When you say it raise, the rib cage expands. That is one thing. Second thing, the diaphragm, which is the muscular partition separating the thoracic cavity and the abdominal cavity, this diaphragm, the muscular partition, will move down into the abdomen so that the space of the thoracic cavity increases. So during inspiration, two things will happen. One is lifting up of the rib cage, another one is pushing down of the diaphragm. So all this will happen because of the contraction of the muscles. There are some muscles involved in inspiration. What are they? The principal muscles which bring about inspiration, two major ones. One is the external intercostal muscle. This external intercostal muscle will help in pulling the ribs up, that is, elevation of the rib. Along with external intercostal muscle, there is also interchondral part of internal intercostal muscle. This also will help in the elevation of the rib. The other important muscle which is responsible to bring about inspiration is the diaphragm. It's like a dome, and this will be pushed down into the abdominal cavity. When it pushes down, what happens? The vertical dimension of the thoracic cavity will become big. And because of the elevation of the ribs and pushing down of the diaphragm, the thoracic cavity space will increase, the lungs will expand. When the lungs expands, the pressure will fall down. When the pressure falls down, then the atmospheric air will gush into the lungs because of the pressure gradation. The pressure in the lungs is lesser compared to the pressure of the atmospheric air. As a result, the air enters into the lungs. During inspiration, when the space in the thoracic cavity increases, lungs will expand, pressure will come down. As a result, the air enters into the lungs. So which are the muscles which are responsible for this? External intercostal muscle, which is present in between the ribs, and also a part of the internal intercostal muscle called as interchondral part. These two are responsible for pulling the ribs out, resulting in elevation of the rib. The diaphragm is another important muscle which will help in inspiration. Along with this, there are some accessory muscles called as sternocleidomastoid muscle, which will help in elevating the sternum, scalens, which will help in elevating the ribs, and also pectoralis minor. These are accessory muscles which helps in increasing the space in the thoracic cavity. So what are the accessory muscles? Sternocleidomastoid muscle, scalene, and pectoralis minor. Now, if you look at the structure of the rib cage, what you have on the side which you are seeing now, that is the ventral side, is the sternum. At the back on the dorsal side, we have the vertebral column. The ribs are attached to the sternum on the ventral side and to the vertebral column on the dorsal side, forming the rib cage. So, during inspiration, the sternum should be pulled a little up and the ribs also should be pulled a little up which is brought about by muscles. So what are the muscles responsible for this? The ribs are pulled up by the external intercostal muscles present in between the ribs, and also part of the internal intercostal muscle, interchondral muscles, and the sternocleidomastoid muscle, which helps in elevating the sternum. Scalene and pectoralis minor, all of them together brings about the increasing the space in the thoracic cavity. As a result, air enters and inspiration will happen. Once you take in oxygen, then exchange of gases will take place in the capillaries. That is, the carbon dioxide will be released into the alveoli, oxygen will be picked up by the capillaries, and carbon dioxide will be expelled out, and oxygen will be carried to the heart for distribution. Now, once inspiration happens, it is followed by expiration. During expiration, what happens? The rib cage should go back and the diaphragm, which is moved down, should come up. When the diaphragm moves up and the rib cage falls down, then the space in the thoracic cavity will reduce. The lungs will be having more pressure now, and as a result, the air will be forced out of the respiratory system and exhalation will happen. Opposite of inhalation will happen in exhalation, and the muscles which are responsible for exhalation are intercostal muscles present between the ribs, except the interchondral, which is going for inspiration. Except that, the rest of the muscle in the internal intercostal muscle will bring in pulling the ribs down. And abdominals, that is the muscles which are present in the abdominals, what they do, they will compress the abdomen and they'll push the diaphragm up. And also quadratus lumborum, and these muscles, internal intercostal muscle, abdominal and quadratus lumborum, all of them will help in pushing the rib cage down and also bringing the diaphragm back from the abdominal cavity back, and because of this the lungs will recoil and exhalation will happen. So here you can look at the picture how the rib cage moves out. So when the external intercostal muscles will contract, it will pull the rib and also the sternum up. Because of that, the dimension of the thoracic cavity increases and the air will enter into the lungs. The diaphragm pushes down. Both intercostals and diaphragm together will increase the air space in the lungs and the air enters into the lungs. In this picture, you can see how the exhalation will happen. The rib cage moves down, the diaphragm moves up. As a result, the space in the lungs is reduced. The lungs will collapse or they will recoil, not collapse, they will recoil. Once they recoil, the pressure increases and exhalation will happen. So that is the process of respiration. In this video, we will be learning how the respiration will happen without any effort. There are two major controls which is bringing about the normal respiration. One is the neural control, the other one is the chemical regulation. First, we will look at the neural regulation. When you look at the neural regulation, there are two main centers which are controlling the respiration. One is the one which controls the automatic or involuntary respiration. The other one is the voluntary respiration. When you say voluntary respiration, it means sometimes you can control the rate of respiration. That is, the inspiration and expiration will be happening at a set pace depending upon the physiology of the body. That will be normal for each person, will have a certain respiratory rate. You can control this respiratory rate. You can make it fast or you can make it slow as required. For example, if you have to blow a balloon, means you have to take in more air and blow it out. So that respiration is not normal, it is slightly deeper than the normal. Or when you are doing some pranayams wherein you are taking in more deep breath, then you are controlling the rate of respiration. Or when you want to blow the candle, you need more air coming out. So you take a deep breath and then blow the candle. All these are some examples for voluntary control of respiration. This voluntary control of respiration, the center is located in the cerebrum. In the cerebrum, there is cerebral cortex. So the cerebral cortex is having respiratory center which will regulate voluntary control of respiration. And from there, the signals will be sent to hypothalamus and limbic system. All these together will control the voluntary regulation of respiration. So what is the center involved in voluntary regulation of respiration? Cortex, hypothalamus and limbic system. This is one part. The major part of respiration which is very, very important is involuntary or automatic control. That is because when you are awake or when you are sleeping, without your knowledge, respiration is happening continuously. From the time a person is born till the person dies, continuously respiration is happening without any effort. That is controlled by the automatic control system. When you look at the automatic control centers in the brain, there are two main centers controlling the automatic respiration or the involuntary respiration. One is called as the medullary center. Second one is called as the pontine center. The medullary center in turn has got two important centers. The medullary center is called as the basic center, which controls the basic respiratory action. The two centers present in the medulla is dorsal respiratory group called as DRG. Second one is ventral respiratory group called as VRG. The dorsal respiratory group is responsible for inspiration, that is taking in oxygen. Ventral respiratory group controls both inspiration as well as expiration. So these two centers, dorsal respiratory group and ventral respiratory group, are located in the medulla region of the brain. The pontine center has got two centers again. One is pneumotaxic, the other one is apneustic. Pneumotaxic will prevent a process called as apneusis, which we will be talking about, and also it tunes the rhythm of respiration, which we'll be looking a little later. And apneustic will help in prolonged inspiration. Prolonged inspiration means sometimes the inhalation becomes longer. If it goes beyond a certain range, then it is not in the normal physiological range. It may lead to further expansion of the lungs, which should not happen. This prolonged inspiration is controlled by pneumotaxic region. So this prolonged inspiration is called as apneusis, which should not happen. That is controlled by the pneumotaxic region. So what are the centers located for involuntary respiration? Medullary center and pontine center. In medullary center, dorsal respiratory group for inspiration, ventral respiratory group for inspiration as well as expiration. In pontine center, pneumotaxic will prevent apneusis, that is prolonged inspiration, and it will fine tune the rhythm of respiration. Apneustic will help in prolonging the inspiration when required, but the pneumotaxic region will not allow the prolonging of the inspiration beyond a range. So if you look at the nerve centers, each one of them is controlling one particular action, but there are neurons connecting them, interneurons connecting different centers, and all of them will act as a stimulating effect or they will have inhibitory effect on each other. They may have either positive feedback or negative feedback and have control on each other, and they all integrate and work together with the help of the interneurons. So here you can look at the picture of the brain, the upper cerebrum. So in the cerebrum you have the cerebral cortex, and the cerebral cortex has got the center to control the voluntary respiration. So cerebral cortex, hypothalamus, limbic system together will bring about voluntary respiration. And if you come down, cerebrum is the region present in the forebrain. If you come down to the brainstem region, there you have medulla oblongata and pons. So first you have the pons region. In the pons region you have pneumotaxic center and apneustic center. This pneumotaxic and apneustic center will form the regulatory center, which in turn will regulate the respiratory activity controlled by the medulla region. So since it is moderating the rate of respiration which is brought about by the medulla region, this is called as the regulatory part of the neural respiration. Pons will become the regulatory part. Medulla has got two centers, dorsal respiratory group and ventral respiratory group, which will control the rate, the pattern of respiration and the rate of respiration. Nerves will arise from these centers, and these nerves will go down to the muscles which bring about respiration. That is the muscles present between the ribs, internal intercostals, external intercostals, accessory muscles which bring about inspiration and respiration, as well as diaphragm. So all these muscles are innervated by the nerves coming from the region of the medulla. Medulla is the basic center which is regulating the respiration. So if you look at the overall picture of the neural regulation, so you have the basic center where there is a lot of nerve network, and you have the medulla and the pons. Medulla is the one which brings about the rhythmic pattern of respiration, which is the involuntary respiration, and also you can bring about pattern respiratory pathway, means you can control the rate of respiration, which is again regulated by the cortex. So you have the rhythmic generators located in the basic center, that is the medulla, and pons is the regulatory center. Now the nerves which are arising from this basic center are called as efferents. There are nerves which arises from this part. Two important nerves which are controlling the process of respiration are the cranial nerve 9, that is the hypoglossal nerve, and the cranial nerve 10, that is the vagal nerve. So the 9th and 10th cranial nerves, hypoglossal and vagus, will play a major role in bringing about the respiration, where you have inspiration and expiration, taking in oxygen and giving out carbon dioxide. Apart from that, there are spinal nerves which also help in the process of respiration. The spinal nerve, there are two major ones. One is the phrenic nerve, which arises from the neck region, that is from the cerebral. If you look at the spinal cord, you have the first few are cervical. So in the cervical 3 to cervical 5, that is cervical 3, 4 and 5 nerves will help in bringing about the respiration. The spinal nerve, phrenic nerve, that is C3 to C5, plays a role in bringing about respiration, and the nerves which are supplying the intercostals, that is from T1 to T11 in the thoracic region. The thoracic nerves, the spinal nerves in the region of the thoracic is called as the thoracic spinal nerves. So T1 to T11 will regulate the activity of the intercostal muscle. So where the respiratory muscles are located? The muscles are located in the upper airway as well as the inspiratory muscles, expiratory muscles. All of these are innervated by these nerves, which together will integrate, coordinate, and bring about inspiration and expiration. So this is about the efferents which is coming down from the respiratory center. The respiratory center will receive the signals from different parts of the body by the nerves which are called as afferents. What are these afferents? These afferents are sensory nerves. Some of them will arise from the chemoreceptors, some will arise from the lungs, some from the nasopharynx, some from the muscles. When you are doing some activity like running or walking, from there the receptors will be sending signals to the brain. So these are called as afferents. Those which are arising from the chemoreceptors, those which are arising from the stretch receptors present in the lungs, those which are present in the nasal and pharyngeal region, the irritant receptors, and those from the muscle proprioceptors. These are all sensory nerves which are sensing the changes in the body and sending those signals to the respiratory center, that is the medulla and the pons. So now we shall look at how these respiratory centers will bring about the coordination and in turn respiration. First we will look at the respiratory center, which is located in the medulla and the pons. So as I already told, in medulla there are two centers. There are centers. We will look at the centers now. One is the dorsal respiratory group, which is responsible for inspiration. Another one present in the medulla is ventral respiratory group, responsible for both inspiration and expiration. So in the medulla you have DRG and VRG. Then in the pons you have pneumotaxic center. This will bring about the transition from inspiration to expiration and thus controls the rate of breath, and the depth of breathing is controlled by pneumotaxic center, which in turn will be sending signals to the medulla, and medulla will be controlling inspiration and expiration. Then you have apneustic center, which is required to have prolonged inspiration. But pneumotaxic center also will be sending signals to apneustic center, because the prolonging of inspiration should not go beyond a range. So the two centers DRG and VRG from medulla, two centers pneumotaxic and apneustic from the pons are the main regulatory centers present in the brain stem, where you have the medulla and pons located in the brain stem. Now we will look at the first part in the medulla, that is the dorsal respiratory group. This plays important role in the control of respiration. It is located on the dorsal part of the medulla, and most of the neurons is located in a region which you call it as nucleus of tractus solitarius, NTS. Nucleus of tractus solitarius, NTS. This is the sensory termination of vagal and glossopharyngeal nerves. So the vagal and glossopharyngeal nerves are located here. It starts here, and this will transmit the sensory signals. Whatever the brain has to tell the respiratory system, that will be carried by the glossopharyngeal and the vagal nerve, and it goes down and supplies the target organs. Now we will look at what do you mean by inspiratory ramp signal. Now when the respiration starts, first information should be passed on to the inspiratory muscles. Inspiratory muscles should bring about inspiration. This information is sent in the form of action potential. This action potential will happen very gradually. It takes its own pace and it is sent to the target organs. The signals will start very slowly, then it goes on increasing steadily. For about 2 seconds, it starts and increases for about 2 seconds, and at that time inhalation will happen. Inspiration will happen and inhalation will happen. Once inhalation happens for 2 seconds and then it stops, this action potential which is bringing about inhalation will stop after 2 seconds. It will stop for 3 seconds. When it stops for 3 seconds, then whatever excitation has happened and inspiration has happened will come down. When it comes down, the lungs will recoil, the chest wall will fall, and the expiration will happen. So this is one cycle. The neural signal action potential will start gradually. After it starts gradually, it increases for 2 seconds, during which inspiration will happen. After that, it will stop for 3 seconds, expiration will happen. This is one cycle of respiration. After one cycle, second cycle will start. Like this, one after the other, the cycles will be controlled from this center, that is the dorsal respiratory group. DRG will start this function and respiration will happen rhythmically without any change in the pattern. Then there is ventral respiratory group, which is located on the side of the medulla, and it is present close to the dorsal respiratory group. It is present a little anterior and lateral to the dorsal respiratory group, and this has got 4 centers: Botzinger complex for expiration, pre-Botzinger complex. It is this part which will initiate the rhythmic pattern of the respiration, that is action potential elicited for 2 seconds and then stopped for 3 seconds, bringing about rhythmic respiration. And this pace, that is rhythmic pace of respiration, is initiated in the pre-Botzinger complex. Then you have the nucleus ambiguus, that is the inspiratory neurons bringing about inspiration. Then you have nucleus retroambiguus, which has got both inspiratory as well as expiratory neurons. So what is the function of the ventral respiratory group? This will be active during normal and quiet inspiration, that is the rhythmic breathing. It has got both inspiratory and expiratory neurons, and it will help during forceful respiration. Like when you are exercising, your respiratory rate goes up. At that time, you should increase the pace of respiration. So that will be controlled by this VRG. Then electrical stimulation of few neurons, which will bring about VRG inspiration, and other neurons which brings about VRG expiration. So ventral respiratory group is contributing both for inspiration as well as expiration. So that was about the medullary center, and in that the pre-Botzinger center is the one which is setting the rhythmic pace of respiration, and the other centers will control the rate of respiration depending upon the activity of the body. Oxygen requirement at rest is different. Oxygen requirement at routine activity is different, and oxygen requirement when you are doing some physical activity like running, walking, that will be different. All that will be mapped and controlled by this center, that is the medullary center. Apneustic center, which is present in the pons region, it is located in the lower part of the pons. What it will do? This is a regulatory center. This will stimulate the dorsal respiratory group. So whenever there is change in the respiratory pattern, if you have to increase the rate of respiration, it is the apneustic center which will be sending signals to the dorsal respiratory group to increase the rate of respiration, and hence the inspiration will go up. It will also get feedback from the vagus nerve and other centers of the body. So For example, if a person is exercising, then the skeletal muscle needs more oxygen. That will be sent by the receptors present in the skeletal muscle, that is the proprioceptors, to the brain. So the apneustic center in turn will send messages to the DRG, dorsal respiratory group, to increase the rate of respiration. So this is about the apneustic center. Then you have pneumotaxic center located in the upper part of the pons. Then what this will do, it will send signals to the inspiratory area. It controls the switch off point of the inspiratory ramp. That is, once the rhythm is set for about 2 seconds, it goes on increasing, then it has to stop. Then expiration will start. So this point, that is transition between inspiration and expiration, is controlled by pneumotaxic center. It controls the filling phase of the lung cycle, that is the inspiration. And the pneumotaxic center signals will decrease the duration of inspiration. It is basically modulating the inspiration and expiration. And weak signals will change the pattern of respiration, that is filling in and the how much time required for filling the lungs, whether you need more oxygen if you are doing some activity or less oxygen if you are resting. All that will be governed and taken care of by this center. Now we spoke about the pre-Botzinger complex. So if you look at this picture here, if you look at the brain stem, you have the pons region where you have the pneumotaxic and apneustic center, which is shown in red color. Then there is the medullary respiratory center where you have the dorsal respiratory group and ventral respiratory group, which is shown in blue color. And very close, located in the medulla region, close to the dorsal respiratory group, you can see located at the back. In the front there is ventral respiratory group. Attached to the ventral respiratory group, you can locate the pre-Botzinger complex. So this pre-Botzinger complex, it is nothing but a network of nerves which is supposed to generate the action potential required for rhythmic breathing, that is inhalation for 2 seconds, exhalation for 3 seconds. It is like the pacemaker what is present in the heart, which will initiate the heartbeat. Like that, the respiratory rate is initiated by the pre-Botzinger complex, and this is like a pacemaker which is setting in rhythmic pattern of breathing. So it is located on the upper end of the respiratory center, that is the medullary center. It is located on the upper part of the medullary center. So you have the pons center on the top, down you have the medullary center. Both of them will control the pattern of respiration. Now you have, I told you about the afferent pathway and the efferent pathway. Afferent pathway is the nerves which are bringing in information from different parts of the body to the respiratory center. It can be from the chemoreceptors, which will sense the differences in the pressure of carbon dioxide, in the pressure of oxygen, in the hydrogen ion concentration and bicarbonate ion concentration. All these are formed during respiration, which we'll be learning in detail. All this will be sensed by the chemoreceptors. Any change in the pressure will be sensed by the baroreceptors, and it is carried by the glossopharyngeal and vagus nerve and delivered to the brain center. This becomes the afferent pathway, bringing in information from different parts of the body to the brain center. Then you have efferent pathway, where you have nerves leaving the brain center and going down to the respiratory muscles, so that it can control the rate of respiration, either increase or decrease. The nerve fibers will leave the respiratory center, that is from the brain. It will come through the spinal cord and it will end in the muscles, that is the intercostal muscles or the diaphragm. So the nerves coming from the spinal region is the phrenic nerve and the intercostal nerve, and from the brain you have the glossopharyngeal nerve and the vagal nerve. So what do you mean by ventilation? This taking in of oxygen and giving out of carbon dioxide is ventilation. The rate of exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide is the ventilatory rate, and this rate of ventilation is controlled by the amount of carbon dioxide present in the blood. The medulla will send signals to the muscles which will initiate inspiration and expiration to bring about rhythmic respiration, and also it controls non-respiratory movements like when you cough, when you sneeze, then the breath rate is not the same, it changes. This changed breath rate is also controlled by the medulla. Rhythmic pattern is also controlled by medulla. Changed pattern, that is pattern behavior, is also patterned respiratory rate is also controlled by medulla. Apneustic center is stimulating and pneumotaxic center is limiting. Apneustic will stimulate to take in more air, to expand the inhalation, whereas pneumotaxic will act as a limiting so that it will not stretch beyond the capacity. So these two centers from the pons will work together and control the rate of breathing. Apart from this, I told you about the receptors which are present. The chemoreceptors will detect the pH in the blood, and it changes the pattern of the involuntary respiration whenever it is required. When the pressure of carbon dioxide becomes more, then you have to take in more air. So that is in turn regulated by the chemoreceptors, which will sense the changes and send the information to the brain. So these chemoreceptors, there are two types. One is the peripheral receptors, which is located near the aorta and near the carotid artery. The other is the central chemoreceptors located in the brain. We will look at the peripheral chemoreceptors. There are two main peripheral chemoreceptors. One is called as the aortic body, other one is called as the carotid body. This aortic body and carotid body will detect the changes in the pH of the blood, and it will send the information to the medulla so that the medulla can adjust the respiratory rate and do whatever is required. If more carbon dioxide is there, it will stimulate exhalation and more inhalation. So this is done. We will see in detail in the next slide. So the chemoreceptors, the peripheral chemoreceptors are two types. If you look at the right side picture, you are looking at the heart and the aorta, where the aorta comes out, then it branches first into the carotid artery, then it gives the coronary artery, then it becomes the aorta. So the first branch of the aorta is the carotid artery, which supplies blood to the brain. On this carotid artery, at the region of the carotid sinus, there are sensory receptors located called as carotid body. Carotid body is located on the carotid sinus of the carotid artery. That is the first peripheral receptor. The second peripheral receptor is located on the aorta, and it is on the aortic arch, and it is called as aortic body. On the left side, you can see the picture how the blood vessels will leave the heart. The aorta comes out of the heart, it arches down. First, it is giving away the carotid artery, and at the carotid sinus, you can see the location of the carotid body. Then the aorta comes out and it arches down to form the main aorta, and located on that is the aortic body. So the carotid body and the aortic body are part of peripheral chemoreceptors. So now if you look at the pathways controlling the respiration, you have the central neural control, which is controlling inhalation and exhalation. In that, first you have cortex. Cortex will bring about voluntary respiration, that is when you want to control your breath. So cortex, hypothalamus and limbic system will control voluntary respiration. Then when you come down to the brain stem, you have pons and medulla in the brain stem. Pons has two centers, pneumotaxic center, which is controlling the speed of inhalation and exhalation, that is controlling the rate of the breath or rate of respiration. Then you have apneustic center, which will increase inhalation, and it is controlled by pneumotaxic center. So this is about the pons region, which are the regulatory centers of the respiration. When you come down to the medulla region, you have dorsal respiratory group for inhalation and exhalation, ventral respiratory group basically controlling exhalation, pre-Bott-Singer complex responsible for rhythmic generation of the respiratory cycle. Then this is the neural pathway. If you look at the receptors, other receptors which are contributing for the regulation of respiration, you have mechanoreceptors which are located in the lungs. So these mechanoreceptors will be sensing the inspiration and expiration, to what extent it is expanding and falling down. That will be felt by the mechanoreceptors and the information will be sent to the brain. Metaboreceptors, which are sensing the activity of your body. If a person is exercising, then the requirement of oxygen is more, which will be sensed by these receptors and sent to the brain. Then you have peripheral chemoreceptors located on the blood vessels. You have carotid body on the carotid artery, aortic body on the aorta, which are sensing the changes in the pressure of carbon dioxide, hydrogen ions concentration in the blood, and it will send it to the brain. That is the respiratory center. Then you have central chemoreceptors, which are located in the brain itself, which are sensing pH changes and carbon dioxide changes in the brain. So all these together will coordinate and bring about the respiration. So here you see the different types of receptors. In the lungs there are stretch receptors, which are sensing to what extent the expansion and the contraction of the thoracic wall is happening. Irritant receptors, which are located basically in the nasal and pharyngeal region. Suppose a antigen, a foreign body enters your body, that will be sensed, and then you will start sneezing or coughing, for which the respiratory rate should be adjusted. So these irritant receptors will send that information to the brain. Then you have peripheral chemoreceptors, carotid body and aortic body, sensing the pressure of oxygen, pressure of carbon dioxide and hydrogen ion concentration. Then you have central chemoreceptors, which are sensing the carbon dioxide concentration and hydrogen ion concentration. Then you have the skeletal muscle. When the skeletal muscle is doing some activity, then the proprioceptors will sense and send that information to the brain. Then there are other receptors located in the region of the hypothalamus. So there you have pain receptors or some emotional receptors. Sometimes when you feel sad, then your respiratory pattern will change. If you become angry, the respiratory pattern will change. If there is some pain, the respiratory pattern will change. All these will be sensed in the region of the hypothalamus and regulates the respiration. So this is about the proprioceptors, which are present in the muscles. So they are the stretch receptors. It is present in the airway, where you have smooth muscles in the airway, and pleura, that is the covering of the lungs. So here it is pleura respond. It's not, there is a spelling mistake. Pleura respond. So whenever there is excessive stretching of the lung because of large inspiration, that will be picked up by these stretch receptors and sent to the brain. This reflex is called as Hering-Breuer inflation reflex. Hering-Breuer inflation reflex is started by the stretch receptors. So what happens when you are breathing? The lungs will inflate and deflate. Inflation is when it is full, deflation is when the air is going out. So this compression of the lungs will be sensed by the proprioceptors and it will be sent to the brain whenever the lungs will inflate beyond a limit. That will be sensed by the stretch receptors and send the information to the brain, and the brain in turn will send the impulses to the muscles and they will cause the lungs to deflate so that the lungs will come back to its normal capacity. This reflex action is called as Hering-Breuer inflation reflex and it is initiated by the stretch receptors. So it will deactivate the stretch receptors when the lungs will deflate. So the Hering-Breuer inflation reflex is bringing about inflation, means it should result in the expansion of the lungs. So the stretch receptors will sense the deflation and it will send the impulse to the brain. The brain in turn will send the messages to the muscles to cause inflation. This is called as Hering-Breuer inflation reflex, which is bringing about inflation of the lungs, for which the stretch receptors are sending the information to the brain and the brain is causing inflation of the lungs. When this happens, the stretch receptors which are responsible for deflation will be deactivated. So the deflation receptors will be deactivated and it brings about inflation. This is called as Hering-Breuer inflation reflex, which is started by the stretch receptors. So the stretch receptors which are present in the region of the lungs, they will be sending information through the vagus nerve, and this vagus nerve in turn will send the information to the medulla. Medulla in turn will stimulate the respiratory muscles and it brings about inhalation. Then after that is completed, then it brings about the exhalation. So stretch receptors regulating inhalation and exhalation of the lungs. So to summarize the overall control of the nervous regulation, so whenever in the body there are changes in the sense, if a person is very active, then what happens? Oxygen is less, but carbon dioxide will become more. So in the arterial blood, if the carbon dioxide becomes more, then that will be sensed by the peripheral chemoreceptors, that is the carotid body and aortic body, and that information will be taken to the medullary respiratory center. That in turn will send messages to the respiratory muscle. The respiratory muscles in turn will bring about increased ventilation, that is increasing the rate of respiration, that is increasing the rate of exchange of gases, so that more and more oxygen is taken and more carbon dioxide is exhaled or expelled out. So because of that, the pressure of carbon dioxide will return back to normal. When the carbon dioxide goes up, the pH will drop down. It becomes more acidic because of the release of hydrogen ion, which we will be learning in detail in the transport of carbon dioxide chapter. So this increased pressure of carbon dioxide is also sensed in the brain, in the cerebrospinal fluid. So the carbon dioxide pressure will become more in the cerebrospinal fluid also. That will be sensed by the central chemoreceptors which are present in the medulla region, which will in turn activate the medullary respiratory center, which acts on the respiratory muscle. In turn, the ventilation increases and carbon dioxide is expelled out. So, both the peripheral and the central chemoreceptors are looking for any changes in the pressure of carbon dioxide and the pH, and that will be picked up and sent to the brain for the regulation of respiration. So, this is how the main center, that is the medullary center, then the regulatory center, that is the pontine center, are controlling the rate of respiration and creating rhythmic pattern when you are not doing any activity, and controlling the ventilation when there is some activity happening, and also during other factors other than chemoreceptors, like if there is a foreign particle in your respiratory pathway, you need to sneeze or you have to cough, or even during vomiting. During that time, the respiratory rate is controlled by this pathway. So, this is the neural pathway where you have the centers in the medulla and the pons, which are controlling the rate of respiration. When nothing is happening at the restful state, it brings about rhythmic pattern, and when there is some activity or some other receptor is triggered, then it brings about a pattern in the respiratory tract based on the need. So, this is how all the receptors and the nervous system together will control the rate of involuntary respiration, and voluntary respiration is controlled by the cerebral cortex. So, with this we have completed the regulation of respiration, where you learnt about involuntary and voluntary control of respiration, and what are the neural pathways and chemical pathways, non-chemical pathways which are involved, which is changing the pattern of respiration. All this we have learnt in this session. In the coming session, we will be looking at the transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide. So, with this we completed the regulation of respiration. If you have got any doubts, you can get it clarified by posting your questions. Thank you, students.